At 57, Keith Urban dropped something that shocked even his closest friends. Not some wild scandal, not a hidden secret, but a truth so personal it made the whole world stop for a second. For nearly 2 decades, Keith and Nicole Kidman looked like the definition of Hollywood class. Two people who seemed to have everything: love, success, and a second shot at life. But behind the smiles and flashing cameras, there was something deeper, a quiet truth Keith had been carrying around for years. When he finally opened up, it wasn't dramatic or headline chasing. Nah, it came with humility, the kind that only shows up after surviving storms fame could never hide. His words didn't just explain the past. They changed everything fans thought they knew about his marriage, his music, and his heart. What Keith revealed wasn't about endings. It was about understanding. And once you hear it, you'll never see their story the same way again. Stick around, and if you love real stories behind the fame, hit subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. The boy who played through fire. Long before the fame, before the Grammys and sold-out arenas, there was a barefoot kid standing in the ashes of what used to be home. Keith Urban grew up in Queensland, Australia, a place where the air smelled like dust, rain, and second chances. But one night, when he was only 9, a fire ripped through the family house. It didn't just destroy walls and furniture, it stole peace. The smoke became a memory he could never fully shake off, his first lesson in loss, and the first time he realized silence could hurt worse than noise. His father, Robert Urban, was a dreamer with a temper, a guy who loved country music almost as much as he feared failure. His mother, Mary Ann, was the calm that stopped the family from completely falling apart. Between the two of them, Keith learned the rhythm of love and survival. One side loud, the other soft. When he grabbed a guitar for the first time, it wasn't about chasing applause. It was about finding something that wouldn't burn, something that wouldn't walk away. Music became his safe place, the language he used when words felt way too heavy. Every note was a tiny rebellion, a way to rebuild from the ashes without saying a thing. He didn't realize it then, but that quiet toughness, the need to turn pain into melody, would follow him forever. But that survival instinct came with a price. One fame would expose instead of heal. The price of talent. As Keith got older, so did his talent and the pressure that came with it. By his teenage years, the small-town kid with sun-bleached hair had become a local sensation in Queensland. Crowds went crazy for his guitar solos, bar owners threw gigs his way, and everybody kept saying he was destined for greatness. But behind every round of applause was a shadow, the quiet echo of a boy still trying to prove he was enough. His father's approval came in sharp bursts, praise 1 minute, pressure the next. Every performance felt like a test, every mistake like proof that pride could crack at any second. The spotlight didn't comfort him, it trapped him. And when the lights went out, the silence came creeping back, the same silence he'd been scared of since he was a kid. That's when he found another escape: alcohol. At first, it was small stuff, just a way to calm his nerves before a show, to shut down the noise in his head. But slowly, the drinking turned into more than a habit. It became armor. Music gave him a stage, but also gave him somewhere to hide. To the world, he looked confident, untouchable. Inside, dude was battling panic and loneliness nonstop. Every song sounded like victory, but really, it was survival wearing a disguise. He was learning that talent could open every door, and loneliness could walk right through every single one. But the louder he played, the quieter his truth became. Chasing the American dream and losing himself. By his early 20s, Keith Urban had already taken over Australia's country scene. But the dream he wanted was bigger: Nashville, the holy ground of country legends. He packed up his guitar, his accent, and a whole lot of fear, stepping into a world where nobody cared who he was. The rejection hit hard and fast. "You sound too foreign," producers told him. "Come back when you sound American." So he adapted. He studied the rhythms, the phrasing, the twang, until even he couldn't tell where his real voice ended and the imitation started. The crowd cheered, the industry smiled, but Keith felt like a ghost trapped inside his own song. Every win felt empty, Every hit record, just another layer hiding who he really was. He'd finally gotten the career he dreamed about, but somehow lost himself along the way. His diary entries from those years talked about exhaustion and confusion, a man searching for peace in all the wrong places. He drank more, laughed less, and kept pretending harder. Fame wasn't fixing him. It was feeding the silence inside him. Behind every standing ovation was one question he couldn't escape. Who am I when the music stops? And soon, the answer would show up, not through fame, but through fate. Because sometimes what saves us doesn't look like salvation. It looks like somebody who sees us before we even see ourselves. Quick pause. If this story's hitting you right in the feels, smash that like button. It helps more people find the truth behind the headlines. When fire met stillness, enter Nicole. It happened quietly. No flashing cameras, no scripted lines. Just two people meeting at the right moment, both carrying scars too deep for words. When Keith Urban met Nicole Kidman in 2005, it wasn't two celebrities meeting. It was two survivors finding each other. She had survived the cold side of fame and heartbreak. He was still fighting ghosts nobody else could see. But the second they talked, it was like their wounds recognized each other. Keith once said, "She saw me before the world did." To him, Nicole was light, calm, graceful, steady in the middle of chaos. To her, Keith was music, raw, real, and completely unfiltered. Together, they found something rare, peace inside the noise. For the first time in forever, Keith believed love could actually be stable. Their conversations lasted for hours, not about fame, but about faith, family, and finding stillness. When she smiled at him, it felt like finally coming home after years of wandering around lost. Friends later said the connection was instant, like suddenly all the chaos before it finally made sense. For Keith, it wasn't just love, it was redemption showing up disguised as a woman. But love isn't only a cure, it's also a mirror. And pretty soon, Keith would see parts of himself he wasn't ready to face. Because even the strongest love can't silence the ghosts we never really buried. The relapse that nearly ended everything. Barely 4 months after their wedding, the golden couple got hit with their first real storm. Keith's old demons came knocking again, quiet but relentless. He had been sober, focused, grateful. But addiction doesn't disappear. It waits for its moment. According to The Guardian, 2007, he checked himself into rehab after realizing success had only made the temptation louder. Nicole didn't walk away. Instead, she stepped up with a strength hardly anyone saw coming. Friends later revealed she brought together the people closest to him for an intervention, not out of anger, but out of love. "She saved my life," Keith would later say, his voice shaking with emotion. It wasn't tabloid-style drama. It was quiet heartbreak followed by an even quieter redemption. The media circled them like vultures, but the real story was happening behind closed doors. Two people deciding to fight instead of run. Nicole became his calm, his compass, his reason to keep going. Still, whispers stuck around. Reports claimed she told friends she wouldn't let addiction steal another chapter of her life. Their love didn't just survive the fire, it got reforged in it. But even after the smoke cleared, the scars stayed. He came out stronger, yeah, but also more fragile, fully aware that healing doesn't mean the fight is over. But survival came with a price fame would soon make him pay. The return to stage and the quiet cracks. Keith's comeback looked straight up cinematic. His 2006 album Love, Pain, and the Whole Crazy Thing went platinum, while Nicole returned to the big screen with a golden compass. They smiled for cameras, walked red carpets hand in hand, and looked like proof that love could survive anything. But behind all that glow, exhaustion was creeping in. Friends and crew members noticed the strain. Non-stop tours, endless interviews, barely any rest. A former manager later admitted, they were in love, but running on fumes. Every show demanded energy Keith barely had left. Every smile started feeling heavier than before. When he sang Stupid Boy, fans cheered without realizing they were listening to a confession hidden inside a melody. The applause got louder, but their connection got quieter. Fame had become their third partner, demanding, jealous, and always watching. Every flight, every movie set, every tour stretched the distance between them just a little more. To the public, they looked untouchable, but the people closest to them could feel the silence creeping back in. Keith once admitted that after every concert, the silence backstage sounded louder than the crowd itself. It was the same silence he'd feared since childhood. Only now, it existed between two people who once saved each other. But from the outside, everything still looked perfect. And that illusion? Yeah, it wouldn't last forever. Love on borrowed time. From the outside, Keith and Nicole still looked like Hollywood's perfect love story. Award shows, red carpets, shared laughs under flashing cameras. But behind all that shine, a quiet distance was growing. Fame didn't break them. Exhaustion did. The nonstop touring, filming, and interviews left them spinning in the same world without really crossing paths anymore. Keith once admitted they had lived more on planes than in their own home. The smile stayed, but the rhythm between them fell off. Every public hug carried a little sadness. Every photo looked just a bit too staged, too careful. Then came Blue Ain't Your Color. The song fans swore was secretly about Nicole. It wasn't angry or bitter. It was aching, raw, and painfully honest. The lyrics talked about love quietly slipping away, about pretending everything's okay when deep down both hearts know it's not. Keith never confirmed who inspired the song, but honestly, the emotion in his voice said enough. Rumors started floating around again, quiet whispers in the industry that maybe the couple was living separate lives under the same spotlight. Still, they showed up, still held hands, still smiled. That's what real endurance looks like. Love that keeps showing up even when the spark starts fading. But love built only on resilience can stretch only so far. And when life tested them again, it didn't come through scandal. It came through grief. Because sometimes the hardest heartbreak isn't between two people. It's what life steals from both of them. Quick reminder, loving these untold Hollywood stories? Hit subscribe now so you never miss the next jaw-dropping revelation. Trust me, there's more coming. The night he broke and began again. In 2015, Keith Urban faced a loss that hit deeper than any headline ever could. His father, Robert Urban, the man who first placed a guitar in his hands, passed away. The news crushed him. But instead of disappearing, Keith did what he'd always done. He got on stage the very next night. Fans saw a flawless performance. What they didn't see was a man quietly falling apart on the inside. For weeks after that, friends said he was there, but empty. The guitars were still around, the crowds were still losing their minds, but the fire in him? Yeah, it was gone. That's when Nicole came home. Not the actress, not the celebrity everybody knew, but the wife who understood silence better than anybody else. She didn't try to magically fix him or throw out some perfect words. She just stayed. They sat together in the dark, holding hands, barely saying a damn thing. And out of that silence came a quiet little whisper that changed everything. We start again. That moment became the soft rebirth of a life they'd built together. Keith threw himself back into sobriety with real purpose this time, turning all that pain into clarity. By the 2016 CMA Awards, he was steady, sober, and locked in, 10 years clean. It's a daily choice, he told the Tennessean. And she's the reason I keep choosing right. The boy who once survived chaos and fire was finally learning how to survive peace and stillness. But here's the thing. Peace never sticks around forever without getting tested. And the next test wouldn't come from tragedy. Nah, it would come from time itself. The calm years and the price of holding on. By 2016, the world saw a whole new Keith Urban, grounded, calm, and finally looking at peace with himself. His albums Ripcord and Graffiti, You crushed the charts, while Nicole earned huge praise for Big Little Lies and Being the Ricardos. From the outside, it looked like they'd cracked the code, balancing fame, marriage, and family life like pros. Interviews painted them as Hollywood's miracle couple, two artists who somehow figured out how to stay together while everyone else drifted apart. But behind closed doors, that balance came with a heavy price tag. Peace took discipline. Sobriety needed constant attention. Fame demanded energy 24/7. They were always juggling being parents, partners, and public figures all at once. "Our marriage isn't 50-50, Nicole told Vanity Fair in 2020. "It's 60-40, and we take turns being 60. Fans connected with that line because it sounded brutally real and honestly kind of exhausting too. Keith became a mentor for younger artists, helping them survive the same storms that nearly wrecked him years earlier. Nicole focused on producing projects that gave women second chances in Hollywood. Together, they turned their pain into purpose. But even strong hearts get tired eventually. By 2023, people started noticing little changes. Keith showing up alone at events more often, separate travel schedules, fewer interviews together. Nothing messy or dramatic, just life slowly shifting in quiet ways. Their story was never about perfection anyway. It was about endurance. Still, time has a sneaky way of testing what fame never could. And before long, the whispers came back again. Not because of scandal, but because people were curious. What happens when two people who once saved each other start walking different roads again? The whispers return, and the final confession. By 2025, fans first noticed the tiny signs. Keith showing up solo at events, Nicole missing premieres, short interviews that hinted something had changed without actually saying it out loud. Then came Lanterns, Keith's new song, stripped down, emotional, and raw as hell. The lyrics talked about gratitude, closure, and the kind of love that never truly disappears. It just changes shape. According to People magazine, Keith and Nicole had quietly signed a parenting plan weeks before filing for divorce. Keith signed on August 29th, Nicole on September 6th, and the official paperwork was filed on September 30th in Nashville. The report said the whole process was calm, respectful, and carefully planned, showing how committed they still were to co-parenting their daughters with privacy and dignity. The news was later confirmed publicly, revealing that the couple had separated after 19 years of marriage. Reports made it clear there was no ugly drama, no public fighting, just mutual respect. And honestly, that's rare in Hollywood. Real rare. When Keith finally spoke, his words carried that same peaceful energy. It wasn't a breakup, he said quietly. It was an awakening, an understanding that love doesn't have to end to evolve. He called Nicole his mirror, his anchor, and the person who taught him what forgiveness actually means. There wasn't bitterness in his voice. No anger. Just peace. The kind you earn after surviving life together under nonstop pressure and spotlight. To the world, it looked like the end of a love story. But to Keith, it felt more like another beginning. Proof that love can change form and still stay real. And honestly, that confession hit people hard not because it was explosive or messy, but because it was so damn rare. A love story ending without hate. A separation wrapped in gratitude instead of bitterness. That's what made it beautiful. Legacy of love, what remains. At the end of it all, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman didn't leave behind some giant scandal. They left behind a lesson. 19 years, 2 daughters, and a love story that reminded people of something most folks forget. Endings don't always mean failure. Sometimes they're just a quieter kind of win. Their legacy isn't only written in hit songs or award-winning movies. It lives in the way they chose grace over gossip and understanding over resentment. They showed the world that real strength isn't about holding on forever. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let love grow into something different. Their daughters, Sunday and Faith, grew up watching 2 people who never stopped respecting each other, even while life slowly pulled them onto different paths. Keith once said peace isn't found in perfection. It's found in simply being present. And you can hear that in Lanterns. You can hear the calm after years of chaos, the acceptance after decades of trying to be everything for everybody all at once. Nicole called it the season of stillness, and maybe that's exactly what they both found. Not an ending, but an understanding. Fans still argue online about whether their story is truly over or just entering a new chapter. But one thing's for sure. They turned pain into purpose and silence into music. So when Keith stood under those lights at 57, voice steady and heart completely open, he wasn't confessing loss. He was confessing gratitude, because love, in every form it can take, had saved him. And in the end, that not fame, not money, not success, became his greatest legacy. If this story hit you in the feels, don't just scroll past. Hit subscribe and stick with us for more real stories behind the spotlight. Because every truth has another side. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.